Welcome back to Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Network. We're ready for a day on a strange Friday, not a red Friday because we have the Monday night game. We're going to take a look at one aspect that has to be taken care of, what the mentality is of this team in trying to get up for a team that they should beat, and then take a first glance at where they're at on the Giants pass rush and what's going to be coming after Patrick Mahomes this week. I think this is going to be fun. We're glad that you're here. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Hey.
Howdy, howdy.
So, folks, we're brought to you by McDonald's today. Check them out. You'll hear more about them later, but we also want to thank you for making us your first listen. Hopefully there's another Locked On in your queue right now. Check that show out, whatever that is, and maybe it's one of the ones that are familiar to you. So, as we have like an extra down day, basically, right?
Yeah.
We're recording this a little bit early. So we'll see how the injuries progress. We'll have all that for you Sunday night on the Monday show. In the meantime, for me, it comes down to, after kind of digesting this whole thing this week, it's about the mentality of the roster and how they can prepare themselves to step up for something that feels kind of similar to me to the Washington football team contest, that this is a team they should beat. They should be able to get right again. Maybe it'll stick this time. How do you feel about it?
Coulda, shoulda, woulda is what I would really say, and I think that they could beat this team. I don't know that they will beat this team, and the reason I say that is I think the Giants are a little bit better than their record indicates. They've been very close in several games. Now, should they beat the Giants? Absolutely. I think they should. They have the talent to, but they should beat some of the teams that they've already lost to. So really hard for me to say that they should win this game right now.
Yeah.
Especially coming off the game against Tennessee, where they just look completely out of sync in all phases.
Well, I mean, there's bullet holes in all their feet because they shot themselves. So that's a large portion of what I'm getting into. And that's honestly where I'm most concerned is that's the mentality. But that's the mentality we've been hearing about 3-4 weeks. It's about these turnovers. It's about helping prevent getting open on routes more if you're a pass catcher, or defending what should be longer developing pressure, in my opinion, than we've seen so far. I won't say that it's blatant, but it's been quicker in Patrick's face than we'd like to see. It doesn't matter who you are on this offense. You have to have that mentality to turn it around and flip the script and just start getting things done better. At this point, I think that it's the player mentality that's got to turn it. Am I missing something, or is there something the coaches can have more of an effect on?
I mean, I think that mentality has to be a part of it. I don't know that it's going to be all of it. I think what you're looking at right now is a situation where they got complacent with where they were the past 2 seasons and thought that would get them through this year, and it just hasn't. And at this point, it's kind of funny is not really the right word, but it's the one I'm going to use for right now, because you look at this situation and you look at an offensive line that I think is playing better than probably they played at all last year, and they still can't get things done. The offense is making mistakes that they haven't made. Jeff Schwartz tweeted out earlier today that Andy Reid's offenses, I think, have turned the ball over an average of like between 14 and 17 or 18 times a year since he's been in Kansas City. They're already at 17 in 7 games.
Yeah.
They're on pace to get to 41. I have a very hard time believing that they get to 41, but with the way they're going, I think that they could easily get to 30. And the question that you have is how do you change that? And I think when you start looking at the mentality, I think the mentality that needs to change the most is Patrick Mahomes. And I never thought that I would actually say that, but that's the way it looks, at least when you watch these games lately.
Well, I think we saw the spark of it last week, and I'm hoping that they can build on that. And I'm glad you took it there, because that's where I was going to go next too. To me, it's about one thing for Patrick right now, in my opinion, and that's this. It's about the trigger finger. He's got to just let the ball go, even if it's a short route that he doesn't want to throw. But if it's there, in watching the All-22 this week, I see multiple times where there's 5-yard outs or 8-yard curls or even 12-yard curls that are there, that are available if he'll just pull the trigger and get the ball out. That's what I think it comes down to, that he's got to be focused on this week.
Yeah, and I think that goes a lot further than just that. I think it also goes to not only the trigger finger, but it also goes to not scrambling and trusting your pocket more. And as an extension of that, I think it also goes to you can't drop back near as far as you have at multiple different times this year. You can't do a 10 or 11-yard drop and expect your tackles to be able to, give you a pocket and be able to keep you clean. You have to be able to step up in the pocket. And the interior of the offensive line, generally speaking, has been good enough to where he should be able to step up into that pocket.
Well, they better be this week too. We'll talk about that pass rush coming up later, but that is what it comes down to. Like, I'd like to just see concentration on 5-step drops, hit the back foot and get the ball out, even if it is just an 8-yard curl.
Yep. And you take those 5-yard plays and you add them up, and this Chiefs offense is going to be unstoppable. And when he does that, this Chiefs offense is cooking. It's when he tries to do things like he's done in the past because he feels like he has to put it all on his shoulders and win the game for him at every single snap. And that's just not the way this is going to work. That's not the way that they're going to get out of this.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. And if you all want to get cooking, today's show is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. There's always a place there that you've always felt you could go get tasty food and affordable as well. But now it's a place that you can come and reconnect with people as well. A place where classmates can meet up for a study group, or you can just hang out knowing that there's dependable Wi-Fi there, and endless surprise of the snacks that you want, whether it's fries or something else. Win, lose, or draw, and there are draws every now and then, especially if you don't have 9 overtimes like the college game. Whether your competitors, a home team, away team, you can all come and recharge. It's a place where you can look forward to being on a long road trip just to rest your legs and refuel a little bit. So right now, especially after a game or on the way home when everything's trying to flood out of a stadium, it does make things easy. Head over to your local McDonald's and refuel and reconnect. I think you might even find some Chiefs fans in there when you get out to it. So I think that's great. We want to just say, check out McDonald's. You're loving it. They're loving it. We're all loving it. Thanks for supporting us. Okay, so this is where I think it gets interesting. We saw the change with Juan Thornhill in for Dan Sorensen. I thought Sorensen played his best set of snaps of the season because there were so few of them, and because of the role. We saw the injury to Hitchens, bring in Bolton, roll on. We'll find the final information about Anthony Hitchens here later as we approach Monday. I don't expect him to play at this point, but are there other changes that you in particular would like to see them make to the lineup in order to get back on track?
I almost think you have to start putting Chris Jones at defensive tackle again. And I'm talking like 60% of the snaps that he's in have him play defensive tackle, and have him in there with Jerron Reed and see if you can get push in the middle of the pocket. Because if you can start getting that push, it's going to help your defensive ends. And, Dan has played pretty well. Clark has started to at least get a little bit of pressure. He hasn't gotten home yet, but a lot of that was coverage on the back end, not allowing the pass rush to get there. So I think that that's something that you look at is playing Chris Jones at his natural position of defensive tackle, and maybe just for the foreseeable future, moving him back to that position for now. There's something else that I would consider doing in the future, and that's when Anthony Hitchens comes back. I think that maybe you consider having Hitchens move to one of the other linebacker positions and have him play instead of Ben Neiman, and let Bolton continue at middle linebacker, because you've seen what he's able to do at that position. And if he's able to go downhill and he's reading the defense, or he's reading the offense right, he's hitting the holes that you want him to hit, and he's developing into the player that you're going to use going forward. I don't think you take that away from him at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with you, especially because a couple of factors that play into that. We know that Anthony can run the middle, but he can play all 3 linebacker positions. We're confident in that from a mental standpoint, from an understanding of the defense standpoint. Putting him at a will wouldn't be it, but you have Willie, so that's perfectly fine. So the Sam, a guy that can be up on the line of scrimmage, that can be more in contact with tight ends in particular, hopefully he can get a little bit more of a jam on them than we've seen them do with Ben Neiman or Dan Sorensen. I think that's really the perfect answer here. Because you're right. Bolton is best when he's flanked, at least in the base, by 2 linebackers, where he can do those either straight middle hook drops, or he can get to a 60-degree angle. When he has to go 45 or more lateral, I think that's where you're stressing Nick Bolton a little farther than he can handle right now. Maybe that changes next season.
Yeah, and I don't even know that it's just that. I think that being flanked by 2 linebackers helps him, but I do think that if he's going to continue to progress and Hitchens is out for another, I would guess at least 2 games, I was surprised they didn't put him on IR considering his arm was in a sling. So I would imagine he's out definitely for this week. I don't think he plays against the Packers, but maybe he comes back and that's why they didn't put him on IR. But for me, I would say, okay, if you have Bolton in there for 2 games and he shows another improvement this week that he showed last week, I think you have to keep him where he is. And you're not going to want Hitchens on the bench for Ben Neiman. So to me, that's the go-to move is you put him at Sam and you let him do. Yeah, he's not perfect for that position, but he's better than what you have in Neiman right now. And he's not going to be the will linebacker like Willie Gay is. So I think you use him to the best of his ability at Sam, and maybe that gives you the ability also to take snaps away from Daniel Sorensen, who is still seemingly struggling at times, doing his old position, being close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, it was by far not a perfect performance. I just think it was better than what he had been doing before, so that's fair.
Oh, absolutely.
And
But that's
back,
not saying much, to be fair.
That's exactly where I was going to go too.
So,
but going back to the Chris Jones things, maybe that protects the linebackers in general, but Dan in particular, if you do move Chris back inside, because then if you have Jones and then Reed, at least in the pass rush situations, and Clark, it all comes back to me, like you said. Dan has been solid. Alex Okafor has been solid in terms of locking down the position, so it's not taken advantage of.
if he's not available this week,
right? But I'm saying they have multiple options there. Mm-hmm. They don't have to, like when Frank Clark was out, have to keep Chris at the end.
Yep.
The question becomes, though, if it's truly going to be efficient, I'm all for rushing inside out, having the push be in the middle, and certainly I think Chris will be a little bit more effective, I think, right now at tackle. But the question still becomes, can you get some actual production out of Frank Clark, not just getting close? And that's still a question to me.
It's still going to be a question, and I think what you're seeing is that he's still coming back from his hamstring injuries. I don't think that he is fully recovered yet, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're not going to get any more than you've already seen so far this season. If you're not, Kansas City's chances of going to much past just making the playoffs at this point are probably gone because Frank Clark has to be able to get some kind of pressure. And if he can't do that, then they're in a hole that they're not going to be able to dig out of just because you can't scheme the pressure that you really need. And obviously, it's not working in the defensive backfield. They have too many question marks across the board right now, and guys are not playing up to what they've played in the past. So you have to think that they're going to have to look at making some changes maybe in the near future there as well.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. And changes might be on the way. We got to look at these Giants as well. But I want to tell you guys one more time, thank you for making us your first listen. There's a lot of other content out there. I got to tell you about something special that's coming on November 2nd. You're going to get a live show on the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. You can see it there, and it's all about the trade deadline. Will the Chiefs be active? Maybe. You never know.
Depends on this game.
Whatever is active, it does actually. Whatever is active, they'll have live reaction for you there. You might even see an appearance from one or two of us. So hope that you guys will check that out on the Locked On NFL YouTube page on November 2nd, 3 p.m. Eastern it begins. Deadline-ish. So that said, there's other things out there.
There are other things out there, and we need to talk about the trade deadline in just a moment, but I want to tell you about our buddies over at Built Bar. If you have not tried Built Bar yet, I do not know what you're waiting for. These are absolutely delicious bars. If you like protein bars, these do not taste like regular protein bars. They taste absolutely fantastic, covered in chocolate, and there are 9 different flavors. They're going through a phase right now where they seem to be coming out with a new limited time flavor every 3 or 4 days. And what do you have there, sir? I can't see it.
The newest blueberry muffin. This is my kid's new favorite.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still wanting the cookie dough one, but I can't seem to get any of them. But that's okay.
What?
I can't seem to order them. It's just frustrating. Coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. Like Ryan said, they have blueberry muffin. They also have a pumpkin paranormal right now, which is something for the holiday season. And when you're talking about Halloween coming up, my favorite flavor really is the cookie dough chunk, and that's why I'm just hoping that I can find it somewhere to order it. If you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mixed box where you get 2 of each of the 9 normal flavors. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180 calories, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Now, really quick, you mentioned the trade deadline and the trade deadline show. I do want to say that if Kansas City is going to be active at the trade deadline, I'm not so sure. I mean, this game is going to matter, but I'm not so sure if it matters more if they win or if they lose. If they lose, I would think that they should be looking to ship people out. They have the hardest remaining schedule in the NFL. At 3-4, they have the hardest remaining schedule. So, yeah, it's not going to be pretty going forward.
No, and it's all up to them. They have to have the change. Like we've been talking about, the intrinsic change, the internal change is what's going to get them through this season. And I do want to just mention I did something kind of fun just to really tease the trick-or-treaters that come to my house this year. I went and bought a couple boxes of the Built Bar Minis. So that's what they're getting. They don't have to like them, but I think they will when it's all over and done with. My kids were not that happy. But
because they want to eat them.
Right. And the hunger comes into it, though, because I think that's what it comes down to is this team has to be hungry. You're right. I think if this game goes poorly, it's more about selling than it is about buying. I don't expect that to happen, though.
The bigger problem is I don't know who you're selling.
Yeah,
it's really, unless you're going to get rid of a cornerstone like Tyreek Hill or Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, those are the guys but are they going to bring anything back in value? I don't know. I mean, those are really the only guys. And Frank Clark, you're not going to get value for right now with his contract. So, I don't even know that you'll get anything for him if you were to try to trade him.
Well, that's the interesting thing to me. If you get anything at that point, knowing that you're going to have to walk away from him in the offseason, maybe that's something. Maybe it's about shedding cap space. I don't know.
Maybe, but I don't think you're going to save a lot if you cut him. Now, if you trade him, that's a little bit of a different issue. Same with Tyreek Hill, same with Tyrann Mathieu. And by all means, I am not saying trade Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying trade Tyrann Mathieu. I'm just saying you're limited in who you can get rid of or who you can trade away. I don't think LDT is going to be somebody that they're going to trade. I just don't see that. He hasn't played at all this season, and he hasn't even been active. So it'd be very hard for me to see them trading him away.
Yeah.
And I just don't see there being a market.
And if there's anything to be extra cautious about, it's about protecting Patrick. So the most options to take care of himself. And protecting him is what we have to get to today. Since we have a little bit of preview time, we will preview you guys the whole game on Monday. So be prepared for that. For me, when I take a look at the pass rush, they certainly had a bad day out last week. The whole entire offensive line. There were bright spots here and there, but overall, the pocket was collapsed enough that made Patrick nervous. That leads to this whole pressing thing. It's all together. So you got to take an opportunity to really lock in on what you can go and change or adapt to with the pass rush you're about to face. And so when you take a look, it really is about two guys right now for the New York Giants. When you look about pressure that's produced, at least for get home, I hate to leave out Dexter Lawrence, but he's doing really well. But it is about Leonard Williams and about Azeez Ojulari. The rookie is actually having a pretty good run of producing second most pressures on that team off of, less than 80% of the snaps versus the interior two guys. So they're getting home from the inside out, and the rookie's there, a guy that has some speed rush, a guy that can come around the corner that I expect them to line up all day long on Orlando Brown and try to do something similar to what we saw last week, knowing that the pocket's going to push up.
Yeah, and I think, and I know I said this earlier in the show, and I want to say it again, I do think that at times, and I've seen it this season, Patrick is seeing phantom pressure where there hasn't been pressure. And I think that's leading to some of these plays where he's having to feel like he has to press. And I don't know how he's going to get past it, but this isn't the line that he had last year. He is getting hit more lately, but earlier on in the season, the offensive line was actually holding up pretty well, and they were keeping people off of Patrick, and that was something that we were really enjoying. But that's just not the way that it's working out this season, and he has to take advantage of what the offensive line is allowing him to do, and he has to trust the interior guys that are really doing what they need to be doing in Tooney and Humphrey and Trey Smith. For the most part, they're keeping people away from him, so he should be able to step up in the pocket.
Yeah, I hope so. Now, they're facing the number 2 and number 3 in terms of pressures on that defensive front for the Giants. But this isn't a unit overall. It's wreaking terrible havoc. So maybe you're right there. For me, it comes back to the rookie Ojulari, who is the one that can exploit what we've seen work against this offensive line so far. And it's interesting to see the progression for him. I was pretty high on him coming out. I don't know that he's gotten off to the start that I expected, but he is doing pretty well. And it was kind of a hunt and peck kind of thing for them the first 4 weeks, where they bounced him back and forth from both sides for the first 4 weeks. But the last 3, he's predominantly lined up on the left-hand side. I expect to see that again. Now, can you move him around and attack Remmers if he plays? Possibly. But my question to you is, do you start Niang knowing that this speed rush has been exposed the last 2 weeks, particularly last week, in an effort to avoid getting in that situation?
Niang at right tackle?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly. I still go back to what I said before, though, when it comes to Mahomes, and I hate to beat a dead horse, and I feel like that's what I'm doing here. But when you're going to a 10 or 11 step drop or 10 or 11 yards back from the start, you're hanging your tackles out to dry. And if Mahomes isn't doing that, I think they're going to be okay, especially if he's getting a 3 or 5 step drop and he's getting the ball out on time where it's supposed to be going. The problem that he's running into is, yes, Orlando Brown is not Eric Fisher. Yes, he's allowing more pressure at times. But Orlando Brown is also not a guy that we ever thought would be a guy that could get back to 11 yards deep in the pocket and keep Mahomes clean. That's just not his play style. And that's not something, and generally speaking, even Eric Fisher would struggle with that. He would have a little bit better of a time doing it because he has more athleticism to get back there, but that's still going to be a struggle for him.
Yeah, I agree. And it comes back
You're
to
not,
running.
you're not putting him in the right spot to be successful is the problem.
Exactly. You know that the shorter drop is going to help him all together. So you might as well put that in the plan as the basis.
And I would take it a step further and say that if they're going to continue to go down the road that they're going, or Patrick's going to continue playing the way that they're playing, and I know that a lot of people will be pissed at this, and I will be too in some aspect, then there's no way you can sign Orlando Brown to a contract.
Yeah.
You got to let him go. He doesn't fit what he doesn't fit
or you
how you're playing.
See if he can make or you can franchise him.
Well, I don't even know that you franchise him.
I'm saying it's an option, and then you have to see how he adapts.
You can franchise him, but the problem is I don't think you can expect that he's going to change. What you signed. You know what you signed up for when you brought him in. You haven't tailored the offense to his skill set, or Mahomes isn't playing to his skill set. One of the two. And if it's Mahomes isn't playing to it and is never going to, then you can't have him as your starting left tackle, and franchising him is going to be even worse because you're going to have the same thing in 2022.
Right, but you have the ability to adapt. That's the whole point. Is if you feel that he's shown you enough that you want to keep him, you franchise him and you adapt to what he does well. That's the point, is making it work.
Right, but they've known this long and they haven't adapted, so I have a hard time believing that they would adapt again next year.
This is a very regimented and planned out season from the coaching staff, particularly Reed, and I wonder if an extra off season isn't going to help that. I don't know.
Well,
we'll find out. It starts now against the Giants pass rush.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And I don't have any qualms, and I don't think that Reed's going to be going anywhere, but at the way they're playing right now with the rest of their schedule, they'll be lucky to be 8-8 if they keep playing this way.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 8-9. I don't even. Right? They won't even have a winning season.
8-1.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't see them tying a team.
I'm kidding.
With the way they're playing, I don't see how they're going to have a winning season. Is really what I'm saying. And while that's not going to cost Reed his job, I also don't think it's going to cause him to make big enough changes to where you could actually have Orlando Brown be successful in Kansas City if they're going to continue to use him in the way they are.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's more about Patrick taking sacks than it is throwing the ball. It's the interceptions themselves. It's the turnovers themselves. All this is preamble that the turnovers are based on, that they can fix that as well. We're going to have to see how they attack it and what else they choose to do. Hopefully there's a lot more run game against the Giants as well. Get that tuned up and running, but we will let you guys know. We'll have the full preview for matchups, keys, and exactly what we think is going to happen coming for you on the Monday show, which will be released late on Sunday. So thank you. We hope you enjoy your weekend and the other games on the slate, and we will talk to you then.